Hello and welcome back. I am Antonio and this is The Art of Game Design. Today we'll be looking at alpha testing and beta testing and what's the difference between the two, right? So alpha testing is something that I normally mention as the very early stages of playtesting your game design, right? Although there is a little bit of a very first testing that is done almost on your own when you finish your prototype, right? As soon as you finish your prototype, you should, and you probably will, play it, right, by yourself. Try to mimic another player if it's a multiplayer game. Try to mimic another player, and do one and then do the other. If you have to, do 3 players if it doesn't play 2. And do that by yourself, because normally halfway through your very first playtest you will see a bunch of things that need to be changed, and this is very normal, right? This is very common, because there's so many things that we only actually see when we're seeing with your hands, right? And in this is pretty much true in terms of board games and card games. There's a lot of little things that are just tactile, and it's only actually evident when you're touching it, when you're holding it, when you're placing it or picking it up, moving it from one place to the other. This will happen on your very first playtest. So do it, play it halfway through, stop, fix what you have to fix, print out new stuff if you need to, and then check to see if those obvious mistakes are gone, right? And the game works at least till the end of the design, till the start to finish. So and then we will move on to the playtesting itself, right? Where we will invite playtesters, right? And this is what I call the alpha testing phase. So it's the phase where you will probably go to your friends or to your loved ones that live with you, or to people that that are into games or could be interested into play test your game, even if they themselves are not that into games or don't even know what a game is to begin with. So in this phase, right, this early stage of playtesting, keep in mind that it's not fun. Alpha testing is renowned for not being fun, right? It's very rare for you to have a game that in its alpha testing version is really exciting or even just mildly fun to begin with, because it's just not, it's too early for that, right? The fun is normally the very last thing that a game brings, right? Until you reach that point, you have a lot to go. Right? You have a lot to grind, a lot to change, a lot to refine, and it's actually a good thing, because it tells you in what stage you are, right? If your game is very much somewhat fun to begin with, it's harder for you to see what needs to be fixed, right? If it's not fun and you want it to be fun, obviously, it's actually better. It's more productive, right? So, and it's especially not fun in this phase. Not fun. It's a grind. It takes longer than it has to. It's more complex than it has to. It's too simplified for its own good, or it's the theme is lacking, or the innovation that you're introducing is either too innovative to the point where you don't really know where it wants to go, and the players can't really see what you're trying to achieve with that, because it's all very new to them. It's normal. This is very much normal to be hard, right? So the very first play tests, which is the alpha testing, you should tell your testers that they're in for a bad time, right? Let them know uphand that it's the very early stages and it's probably not going to be that much fun for them. But that's not the point, right? The alpha testing, the point of alpha testing is not to make sure if the game is fun. That's for later. The point of the alpha testing is to make sure that if it works, right? it works, and it works, and it works within the time frame that you want it to work, and it works the way that you want it to work. And also see if people can get excited about the idea. They're not going to be excited about the play experience, but the idea, where it wants to go, right? Where it wants to go, what it's proposing. And this is what you try, this is the feedback that you're looking for in the alpha testing. You're looking for this feedback that tells you that players get it, even though they don't yet played it as it's meant to be, but get it where it wants to go. And they can give you some hints on how to get there, they would wish it to be, to get to the point where it wants to go. Because sometimes it's a different thing, right? For what players want and what the game wants, right? Sometimes it's different things. But normally they will give you all of these feedback, and then you have to filter out what is useful, productive feedback and what is not, right? But this is the phase where you're trying to get essentially this idea of, do players understand where the game wants to go? Are they excited for that, even though they played through a game that's not very exciting at this stage? And do they see things that actually could help get there, and things that they would want to see that's closer to that, right? And sometimes you will find that the game wants to go in a completely different direction that you thought it would, right? And this is great, right? If this comes to the surface, this is actually very good, because it is very useful feedback, even though it's a bit of a disappointment because you thought this game would be, a specific type of game with specific mechanics and themes, and then all of a sudden it presents itself as something that wants to go in a different direction, right? This is fine. This is fine, and this is normal, actually. And you have to let your game go where it wants to go, right? You kind of need to let it go where it wants to go, because if you're going to force it into the direction you want, it's much harder, and the chances of success are much slimmer, right? It's possible, but it's something that I wouldn't recommend for your first designs. Let it go where it wants to go. Let it go where it wants to go. Although, keep in mind that you are the designer, not your playtesters. So they will say a bunch of things, and you have to be prepared for this. They will say a bunch of things that are just ramble. They're just thinking out loud. They're not actually going through the motions and constructing a useful feedback. No, they're just speaking out loud. I did not like this. This seems stupid. That seems stupid. And then if they think about it, well, that's not that stupid. No, I actually liked it. Oh, and I actually like that. So don't take word for word of what they're saying. You need to interpret what they're saying. This is a hard science, to do. Sometimes a player will say something that it seems like a ramble, but it actually hides a very fundamental truth, right? And sometimes they will say something that seems very important and very instructed and very thought through, and at the end of the day, it's not that useful, because they're hoping the game would be something that clearly it's not, and it's never going to be. But through the experiences that they have in the past, and and especially this happens a lot with gamers that are very seasoned and very experienced, they will have a lot of background, a lot of luggage, right? Which sometimes is good, because they know immediately how to compare this to what exists and how to put it into frame. But at the same time, it might be bad, because they will be wanting it to be similar to other things, or bring in some things that they're expecting. They have high expectations that don't meet exactly what the game is about and what it's trying to achieve, and this will be a bit of a mismatch, and it's just noise for you to filter out, right? This is not the useful feedback that you're looking for. Although a seasoned player is very useful, again, because it has that experience, right? It clearly knows when something is just outright done, this has been done, this is not new, or this here is actually new and interesting, right? So this is good, but at the same time, you want to have a good mix of seasoned players and non-seasoned players, newbies, if you will, and sometimes even players that never even played a game ever, right? Complete non-gamers, right? Because they have this purity, right? They will approach it from a blank slate. And this sometimes is really important to see if a game has that reach, right? It can reach that far, right? If it can reach to a non-gamer, which is really hard for a gamer to reach to a non-gamer. And the games that do that normally are very successful. So if a game can reach as far as a non-gamer, that's really good. But at the same time, it is easy for a non-gamer to get excited about a game. It's easy because they never really tried anything. So you need to filter out what is that excitement out of inexperience, and just if they knew better, they wouldn't be as excited. And what is actually that ability, that reach that your game actually seems to have and can be worked on to grab non-gamers, to grab those that are really just disconnected to this and normally feel a little bit threatened by this reality and a little bit intimidated by the entry, the bar, right? The need to read a rule book and to look up a video tutorial or what that. This normally is very intimidating for non-gamers. So if your game can go through that and jump over that, that is really good. But it's really hard, as you can see. Sometimes the same phrase a playtester will tell you can be both good or bad, right? It really depends on their background. It depends on the game that they just played and how it went, if they won, if they lost. So there's a lot of variables that you need to know. You need to know who they are, what they know, what they have played, what they have not played. You have to have a good profile of each player, and you need to understand their language. What do they mean when they say something like, I did not like this? Do they actually mean, I did not like this? Or do they say, I wish this was different? Or I was expecting something in a different way? Or I've never... it took me a long time to learn how to do this, and I only actually learned to do that by the end of the game, and at that point was too late, and that gave me a sour experience. But if I had gotten that from the rules explanation, probably I would have done this better, and probably I would actually enjoy it. So you can see a single phrase of I did not like this has various interpretations in it. This is a little bit overwhelming, yes, and I get that you're probably a little overwhelmed. And it's normal, right? It's normal to be a little bit overwhelmed. So you need to, again, when you're in the spot, players are playing, everything they say, you kind of need to write it down. Don't think about it then. Just take notes, right? Take notes. He said that, this happened. Sometimes nonverbal things are very important, Somebody seems to struggle with something, or players tend to forget something, a rule or an upkeep or the turn order. Little things that seem to happen recurrently, and nobody mentioned it, nobody said it out loud, but you saw that it happened. You need to take note of that as well. And sometimes even tactile things. The cards, players seem to struggle to grab the card out of the board, right? And this is done multiple times in a turn, and it happens multiple times. Players can't seem to get the card off the board. It seems ridiculous, but it can sour an experience. So take note of that as well. And then by the end, you need to ask really good questions, right? Don't just say, so, what do you guys think? Although this is a good question, I'm not saying that it's a bad question, but you can target it a little bit more. You can say, what was the thing that you expected to be different, right? Or what was the thing that you enjoyed the most and did not expect it? Or what was the thing that you did not like at all and kind of felt that it was useless or unnecessary. It could be removed. Something that was, just excess fat that can be cut off. Target your questions, right? And kind of feel the pulse, right? Feel the pulse of the table, right? Feel the pulse of what players are, they're scratching their head a lot to come up with a feedback. Or are they seem to have thought about their feedback while they were playing, right? And they immediately have something to say as soon as the game ends. They want to say that this was that was that, I didn't like this, I like that, but I did not like that. Try to get the pulse and write that down, right? Write that down. And normally the best feedback is between the lines. It's between phrases, right? It's not exactly the phrase that he said and what he said after, but what's going on between these two, right? When you add these two statements together from the same person, they conjure a different meaning, right? This is the alpha testing version. The beta testing version is different, right? Beta testing normally is something that happens after you've got a publisher behind you and a developer and all that. Beta testing is different, right? It's something that's normally a little bit more pleasurable because the game has its own set of wheels at this point and it runs nicely, at least for the broad majority. And at this stage of playtesting, you are not looking for this enormous list of things that you have to think about and change. Although the approach to the feedback is pretty much the same. The process of collecting the feedback and interpreting the feedback is the same. Although focused on little things, little details. And the devil is in the details. So playtesting in the beta testing version is actually sometimes harder because it's the little things. It's 1 point less on this card. It's probably one cube less for each player, or 1 money more for each player, or so the game ends and at the end of this round or at the beginning of this round when the player, small details here and there that make the game from an okay version to awesome, right? This is the beta testing, right? And at this point, you've already done your pitch and probably were successful with your pitch. And we probably should be looking at how to do a pitch. We'll be looking at that in the next lesson. So, but again, think that beta testing is something that happens after that, right? After the editor has signed a contract with you to publish your game, something like that. Beta testing is something that occurs after that, right? So we'll talk about more of this and how to do a good pitch in the next video. So I'll see you then. Goodbye. Thanks so much for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel for more free videos like this one. If you are looking for more advanced lessons or wish to show me your own work, check out my Patreon for more information. If you like this video, why not share it with a friend or a colleague that is interested in game design? I'll see you in the next one.